Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great week out there. This is a slightly different video today and I'm hoping that it will help you, the very person that's watching this video. It's not going to be a tutorial, we're not going to do a load of things on the computer, although I will show you a slight demo of something later on in the video. But I want to talk to you about your images and what you do with them. So you've captured your data overnight and you come to the computer and you're processing Siril, PixInsight, whatever program that you use. How do you start your processing journey? Years ago, when I was learning PixInsight, it's a difficult program to learn, let's face it. And what I quickly realized after a couple of months is that you only need to use 20-30% of what's in there. But regardless of whether you're an experienced imager or whether you're just starting out, there is something that I hit upon fairly quickly that I think will hopefully help many of you out there. So this is more of a talking head video, a discussion video. Please don't tune out, because I think this could help many of you out there. How many of you take your images, come back in, sit down to whatever processing software you're using, and then just start processing and playing around and doing things? It's something that I did for lots of years, but recently, probably in the last year or two, I've really changed tack in the way that I process my images. I don't start by going into PixInsight. I do a couple of things. So I want to introduce you to this idea of being really purposeful with the data that you've got. Be purposeful with your imaging. And there are two things that I would say as a starting point for that. Learn to think about intent over using a technique. Sometimes what we do is we come to an image and we'll process the hell out of it and then think, oh yes, I'm happy with that at the end. But actually, I think it's more important to think about your intent before you get to the processing stage. What is it that you want this image to look like before you even start? And the second thing that I would encourage you to do is to take time on reflection over tutorials. Many of us sit down, learn a tutorial. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done those kinds of videos for you myself, and there's lots of good things to learn out there. But when it comes to processing, are you reflecting on your imaging, or are you just churning out things? Before I stumbled across this idea of processing, what I used to do was spend eons of time reprocessing because I was never quite happy with the outcomes. Sometimes I'd go right back to the beginning. But being more purposeful and thinking about what you want to do before you process an image saves on time and actually gives you a clear goal for where you want to head with your processing style. So I try to ask myself 4 questions when I'm processing an image. The first thing that I do is I ask, what is my goal for this image? What do I want it to look like at the end? The second question that I ask myself is, can I get to that goal with the data that I've got? Have I got good enough data? Have I got enough subs so that it's not noisy? Is the data good enough quality? The third question I ask myself is, what kinds of things can I do with the image? So if it's a nebula image, are there parts of the nebula that I really want to show up? Are there certain colors that I want to come out? Are there certain elements of the image that I want to emphasize? And then finally, I will make a rough little plan, which I'll show you a little bit later on how I do that on the computer. And I'll commit to a way of processing an image very purposefully. Now, before I go any further with this discussion, I think it's really important that you identify with what kind of imager you are. And we're all different in our ways, all good as well. There's no right or wrong in any of this. But are you one of the kinds of imagers who actually just wants to process loads of images? Maybe you want to capture loads of things in one night. Maybe you want to be a speedy imager. You don't want to take hours and hours over processing. You just want to get to where you want to get to, and you're not willing to maybe put in hours of time, but you're quite happy with the results that you get. Maybe you're competitive as an imager, maybe against yourself or maybe other people, and your intention is to do the best possible version that you've seen, or at least something that you feel really pleased with. Maybe you're the kind of person who wants to be science driven, and you want to bring out the scientific details, or maybe what things are in the image and what stars are there, or variable stars, double stars, and you want to label it all up or emphasize particular structures. You could be an educator, somebody who wants to educate through your images, and that's your purpose, that's your intention with how you're processing your images. Maybe you're one of the technique explorers and the latest technique comes out. I did a video on mass recently, multi-scale adaptive stretching, and maybe you've found that and you go back to all your old images and process them using that to see if they're better or not, and you're obsessed with techniques. Perhaps you're somebody who wants to just produce some artwork for your walls in your house or for a friend, and you want to produce something that is worthy of hanging, and that's your goal. But I'd reiterate again, it doesn't matter what kind of imager you are. All of those kinds of ways of processing an image are valid. A little bit later in the video, I'll tell you what kind of imager I am. Well, at this stage in the video, what I'm going to do is actually just hop onto the computer. We're not particularly going to be going through any sort of tutorial stuff, but I want to show you what I do with my purpose and my intention, and thinking about an image before I even start processing. So I've just captured some data on the Wizard Nebula. The data's a little bit compromised because I actually took the sulfur signal in 100% moonlight, and the oxygen I think was in 80% moonlight as well. So the data's already not ideal. So knowing that information before I start imaging, I'm possibly already going to be limited with what I can do with the data. But my start point is not in PixInsight. On the screen, you'll see I've got Astrobin open. It doesn't have to be Astrobin. I could have used Google Images or whatever, but Astrobin's quite helpful in terms of a searching start. So I've searched for the Wizard Nebula images, and my first step is just to have a look. And what do I like and what don't I like? And by the way, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. If your image is up here, they're all wonderful. But there's a certain thing to me that is about style. So what I'm going to now start to do is look at what we've got here and see what I like. I'm already seeing I want it to be a Hubble palette image. So that would rule out ones like this red one over here. Quite like this one here, but I think there's too many stars in it for my taste. I'd want to tone that down. This one over here is lovely. It's a little bit dark, for my taste. So I'm just going to start scrolling down. Okay, so this one's very nice, but again, just thinking about the reality of the situation, I'm not sure I've got enough data maybe to make those details pop. Let's go back to the search. I'm liking that one very much. This one, I think we found a winner. And so when I think I found something I like, I'll open up the picture. This is by Rick Stevenson. Well done, Rick. This is the kind of style that I like, and that I can feel that I can associate with. And then I start to think about some questions. I think about, well, what works within this image? Well, for me, the stars are nicely controlled and the nebula comes out really well. But I also like the colors on it. That's the kind of look that I'm liking. I just think over here on this bottom right of the image, you've got this fainter nebula coming out. That's really nice. And I like how the nebula in the center has been emphasized. Rick's done a wonderful job here of not losing. Let's just see if we can zoom in on this a little bit more. There we go. So Rick's done a wonderful job of not losing the data in these regions as well. And this lovely dark emphasis in the contrast here. So I think to me, that's a picture that works really, really well. Is there anything that doesn't work on it? For me, no, not really. I think the star colours are going to end up being better than what I'm going to be capable of getting, because to me they look like RGB stars. I haven't captured enough data to do that. So it's at this point where I found the kind of image that I like. And by the way, there's something really, really important. I'm not looking to copy this image. I'm looking to use this image to inspire my own image, because it meets the kind of imager that I am, if that makes sense. So if we look on screen at Rick Stevenson's image, which I really like, what I would then do at this stage is probably just start to take it into a notepad and then maybe just start to have a look around it and make some notes on what I like. Now, I'd normally do this on an iPad rather than a Wacom tablet, so apologies for my handwriting. So I might start to point out features that I like. So I definitely want to think about this area here, because it's got a lovely piece of nebula there, and I would put maybe some notes on that nebula, and then perhaps kind of, a contrast on them I like. So I might do some notes on contrast. Apologies for my handwriting, it's awful. But I might then start to kind of point out features like some of the colors that I like. So I like the golds, I like the blues, I like the darker blues, maybe sort of tie all of that up over over here, not having much luck with a pen, but I might, be writing colors over here. So I would just simply make notes on the image that I've got, and then I would save this, and then I would take it into PixInsight as my inspiration for imaging. And this is going to give me huge purpose on what I want to achieve with my Wizard Nebula. There's an important point at this stage. I do not keep this image open in PixInsight. I actually close the process icon, because I don't want this to be distracting to me. I've looked at it. I already know what I want to do from it, but it will be my inspiration, and then I will process my image. At the end of the image, that's when I will open this back up. Then look at mine. This is my version of it. And you can see that, based on some of the things that we're starting to pick out on it, there are some similarities. There's definitely some differences as well in the colors. I went for a more cyan field than a blue field. But you can start to see that this image is sort of got the stylistic features. Some of them, yes, some of them not. But it really helped me create my version of it. And I particularly liked this this nebulous part on both pictures, and I think I've done a reasonable job. Probably not quite as good job, because there's definitely more data on this than I've got in mine, and it's probably wasn't shot under huge moonlit skies and been a bit washed out. But you can see that it's a reasonable sort of attempt to get close to the inspiration of this picture. I took a few more stars out because I wanted it to be a little bit less starless, but I've managed to create some of the faint nebulosity in the bottom right parts of the image. I've managed to approximate the colors. And so it's been a very intentional image. Now, I said earlier in the video I would tell you what kind of imager I am, and I am the serial improver. I am never, ever happy with my images, and each image has to be better than the last one. On screen now there is a picture of the Orion Nebula, and I processed this before any of the Roscroman tools were available. And at the time when I processed it, I was really happy. There's lots of lovely nebula. But now when I look at this, I'm not happy with it. For a start, the deconvolution has not done well. If I just zoom in a little bit on the images, you'll see the stars are looking a little bit nasty. It's not a terrible image by any means, but I know that I could improve on that now, even though the nebulosity part I'm very pleased with. I'm actually slightly embarrassed because somebody that I know who is not particularly interested in astronomy saw this image and asked to have it in her kitchen. and I think it's on something like a 10-foot by 10-foot print. So I'm slightly embarrassed that this is in someone's kitchen. Now I know that I can do a better job, but that's what you are if you are a serial improver. Anyway, hopefully this video today sparks some debate. Please do comment down in the comments section and tell me what kind of imager you are, but also whether you found this helpful. Do you just get processing, or do you pause before you process and you add purpose to what you want to achieve? Let me know. My name's Martin, and you've been watching Adventures in Astronomy. Hope to see you next time.